Good afternoon. We are talking about underage drinking and the progression to other drug use. I'm Steve Panzik. I'm coach of the Manhasset High School, middle school, and high school crew teams and a parent of 3. I'm here on behalf of Manhasset CASA with AJ Diaz, a 2009 graduate of Manhasset High School who lived through an addiction to alcohol, marijuana, and then Oxycontin. He is in recovery and eager to warn about the dangers of underage drinking and drugs. AJ, what was high school like for you?
High school was great. You know, I played sports. I played football and lacrosse were the main sports I played, and you know, I was in the popular group. I had a lot of friends. You know, I was very well meshed within the culture that is Manhasset High School. You know, grades kind of came easy to me. I was good at kind of rote memorization, and you know, that combined with sports allowed me, you know, kind of a certain standing at you know, amongst my peers. So to answer the question, I guess needless to say, was easy-ish, you know, as far as socially.
You know, nowadays with kids when they get into high school, did you have any problems per se in high school? Or was there any things that affected you in high school? Any problems?
Yeah, I mean the way I drank. You know, from the get-go, you know, when I was in, you know, 6th and 7th and 8th grade, you know, I'd love to go to the games, right? I'd love to go to the you know, the lacrosse games and the football games, especially Friday and Saturday nights. And whereas most kids liked just the game itself, I really liked the fact that they got to win, you know, under the lights, and then go right to the back of the high school, that parking lot that everybody knows, and load up their car with their friends and beer and go to a party. I thought that was just like so cool. You know, it embodied all these movies that I had seen. It was like, it was real life. It was these movies happening in real life for me. And I know for myself, I couldn't wait to get to that point. To not only the game, but like, I get to go do something afterwards. And when freshman year came along and, oh my God, I'm playing these sports now, here's my opportunity. And so from the get-go, that's what I like to do. And looking back, you know, I felt like I was always kind of, you know, and before I say, you know, high school was easy-ish to me, but, you know, looking back, it's only, you know, in sobriety that I found out that, you know, I had this feeling of inadequacy, that I was less than, right? I don't think I knew how to articulate that when I was, you know, 15, 16, and 17. But I was in a group, you know, in a class in high school with a lot of really talented people all across the board. You know, whether it was athletics, academics, the arts, music, it didn't matter. I felt like I always came in second. And I didn't know why, you know. Obviously, I didn't, you know that everyone was putting in a lot of work and studying and training and doing this and that and practicing. I wasn't doing any of that. You know, I kind of just didn't understand why things just didn't happen for me. You know, I would see people's end products, whether it be on a test, getting an A, you know, in like a play where, you know, I sang in the chorus. So in chorus, like doing this and that, right? Or on a field, you know, being, you know, celebrated for having such a great game. And it was kind of me kind of behind the shadows, and you know, I didn't realize that had a real effect on me. You know, I think I was great at outwardly being extroverted and popular and, you know, having friends, but for the things that like kind of by myself really mattered, I just wasn't getting there. But then I found drinking, you know, and I found this thing that I was really good at. And I like to, you know, file it under the, you know, the tab of having fun. And so, you know, I was really good at having fun. But from the start, that's what I like to do, and that's what I was very good at. You know, these things that I was never great at one thing. I was good at, you know, a lot of things, but drinking I was great at. You know, and that was an issue.
So let's take a quick break for this public service message.
Hello, we are students from Manhasset High School, and we are here to tell you about a very important organization in our community, Manhasset CASA. What is Manhasset CASA? Well, CASA is an acronym for Coalition Against Substance Abuse, but it is so much more.
You've all seen the news and heard the statistics. There is a drug epidemic on Long Island and an opioid crisis across our nation. Just watch the news and you'll see the stories.
CASA's mission is prevention through connection. This means that we are all pieces of a puzzle. Us, our friends, our parents, our neighborhood, and our schools.
When we're all connected in this way, we know that we're not alone. So as teens, when we choose not to drink, we know that there are people, adults and other teens, that support our healthy choices. When we're all connected, we know that it's okay to reach out to a parent or teacher when we need help.
How does CASA do this? Well, in many ways. CASA has a variety of speakers that come to our school to share their stories. Former NBA basketball superstar Chris Herron has come twice to our community to share how he overcame his drug addiction.
CASA also has its own club at Manhasset High School. They sponsor many fun activities that give us an alternative to weekend drinking.
The Youth Committee also prepares and teaches a lesson to 7th grade science classes about the dangers of smoking and vaping.
For parents, CASA sponsors programs at the Manhasset Library that focus on anti-bullying and effective parenting strategies for children and teens.
And with Senator Phillips' office, CASA has had several take-back events where you can bring your old prescription drugs to be safely disposed of.
But there is so much more. Check out CASA's website and consider becoming a member.
We need your support. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm here with AJ Diaz, and we're talking about underage drinking. AJ, earlier you talked about that rite of passage and that Friday night lights of fun and going out drinking. Now, in high school, how did that lead you into college? What did that set you up for in college? What were those years like?
I mean, it set me up for failure. The way I drank it, it was progressive, right? It was fatal, to a certain point of that progression, right? Again, it started in, the first drink I ever had was in 7th grade. I was at a friend's brother's graduation party. And again, that same thing of wanting to be part of this culture that, promotes underage drinking. I remember being there, I was in 7th grade and seeing people with red cups, and all I wanted to do was be filling up a red cup, So you fast forward to 9th grade, and now I have arrived at this this scene of of sports and then drinking, or just being with friends and drinking, going out. And as high school progressed and high school went into college, I was a blackout drinker. I was not someone who had a drink or two and then left. I didn't get a buzz and leave. Right? Nothing I did was under control. It was all about, this, what can I do next that will amplify what I like, and this having fun. When I got to college, I played 2 sports in college, which I started to play, right, and grades were good when I started, in college, and very quickly I ended up, quitting those sports. My grades were nothing. And the only thing I cared about was, drinking and eventually using drugs.
Now, when you went into the college years, and you said at that point beer was your choice. What doors did that open once you got to college?
I mean, every door, right? Again, beer at that point kind of became stale for me. Again, I needed that, talking about that progression. What was the next thing that will make this so much better for me? And for me, that was vodka. That was, a lot of smoking marijuana. What's the next best thing I can get my hands on that, is acceptable by everyone here and amplifies my need to kind of get it as inebriated as possible. And eventually, by the time I was a sophomore, that led to OxyContin. And once that hit, that was just a runaway train for me. By the time I was a senior, these 2 sports that I had loved my whole life, I'd quit. I wanted nothing to do with them because they got in the way of the things that I wanted to do. And now I'm not talking about any big plans I had. I purely mean just, drinking 4 or 5 days a week and using drugs every day. Got in the way of that. Grades, I'd gone from, a very good student in high school. And then freshman year, I did, I had a bit of an adjustment period right with college. I still did well. And then, by the time sophomore year hit, I took a nosedive. I ended up graduating with, barely a 2.5 in college. So yeah, it did not end well for me at all.
When you were in college and you talked about the change in personality, the change in the goals, things that you loved at one point, was there any turning points or forks in the roads that you see now looking back that maybe it could have changed and gone the other way, from friends or family?
Totally. You know, I mean, I think friends the most, and I think also like those turning points are also, you know, the onus is on me, right? I was not someone who communicated with anyone, let alone my parents, right? The people who are, you know, designed to love me, and they're fantastic, but I never let them in. You know, I was not someone who came home and communicated virtually anything, even to friends. You know, I wanted to keep things on the surface, keep them happy. Again, I like to have fun, so you know, anything that kind of broke that barrier of on the surface level, I was not about that. So you know, a big part of that is myself, that, you know, I didn't allow that to happen. I didn't allow those kind of deeper connections to occur where people could be like, hey, you're out of control, you know, you need help. Yeah, you know, I think that was on me, that, you know, this lack of this ability to communicate with, you know, the people around me.
So, again, you start drinking in high school.
Yep.
Blackout, going to college, you're chasing that next high,
yep,
that next challenge, so to speak,
yep,
which is the hard alcohol, the marijuana, the Oxycontin. You graduate college,
yeah,
not at the level that you'd want, but you graduate. No. So you get out of college. I mean, at this point, what's next? You are a full drug addict at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is, and at this point, is it what level do you need just to maintain base? I
mean, I needed, so you know, I was addicted to 30 milligram Oxycontin pills. So I needed between 300 and 400 milligrams a day, about 10 to 15 pills a day. And this was purely to get up, to shower, to eat something, to have a conversation, right?
And let me. How many pills you said?
10 to 15.
And how much is it a pill?
$30.
So how much financial are you doing in drugs
per day?
At that point,
I mean, a week, you know, let's see, my math is not very good, but like I'd say about like $500 a day. So, you know, yeah, so 7 days a week, right? That's $3,500. I hope my math's right on that one.
So you get out of college, and what's the next step for you?
I mean, I got out of college by the skin of my teeth. You know, I did not graduate on time. I had to stay an extra month at school and take a class that I'd failed. So while all my friends were walking at graduation and had a diploma, I had a little binder that had nothing in it, which, you know, disappointed me up to the point where my parents were disappointed, but other than that, I didn't really care. You know, I'm gonna get it anyways, I'll pass this class. You know, I was very good at drawing lines in the sand that, you know, I just kept, you know, I would rationalize and I would redraw them. You know, this is where my life had taken me. So I got a job, you know, working at a really nice financial firm downtown in New York City. Again, I was good at, you know, masquerading. I was, you know, at that time, because I didn't communicate and because I needed to hide things and hide this progression, I got very good at lying. I got very good at manipulating and you know, very good at, you know, being deceitful and secretive with, you know, who I really was. Because I knew that kind of in, you know, moments of solidarity that, you know, people wouldn't like, you know, what I was doing. So I could kind of, you know, charm my way in an interview, and I was able to do that. And now I had access to money that I had never seen before. I was living at home with my parents. I had no expenses whatsoever, and every single dollar I made, you know, went right into my body, you know, in the form of substances.
And at this point, how long did that job last? How long were you able to maintain that in a work environment?
Right, that lasted about 4 months. I just couldn't do it. I mean, you know, it got to the point where, again, because I needed, you know, these pills every single day to function, you know, without them I had, you know, I was not only in withdrawal, but, you know, the prospect of going to work and having a day without them was just so anxiety inducing I couldn't even do it. I got, you know, my parents had caught me, you know, they found some pills in my wallet, and I had lied at work. I got fired from that job, and I, you know, went and did what's called an intensive outpatient program. It's group therapy, they drug test you, But again, because of this manipulation, this charm that I had, that I was able to this ability that I had, I conned the people there. I conned my parents. I just lied through my teeth the entire time, and I was able to get myself out of that because, I wasn't finished with what I was doing yet.
Was that your first stint with rehab at that point?
Yes, it was. With trying to get sober, yeah, it was. I had no desire to do it. I didn't think I belonged there. I thought this was just a phase, or at least I told myself that lie. And again, I, doubled down on that, as often as I could to my parents to get myself out of that situation so I could continue to do what I really wanted to do, which was, drink and do drugs.
How many times were you in and out of facilities?
I never.
Or did you try go into a rehab type setting?
No, I mean, I went to that, this outpatient group for a month, and then and that was it,
Did you think you had a problem at that point?
No, I didn't. I just thought that this was, this is what people do, and this is normal, and this is what people do, All
right, so you've lost your first job.
Yep.
You're still full-blown going at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does it come to an end? Like where is that step to where all of a sudden you have that aha moment? You're like, I need help.
Right. Took a while, a couple of years, a couple more jobs of having jobs, losing jobs, very nice jobs too. Jobs that I would have loved to have a career in. But again, the only thing that I cared about was this need for drugs and alcohol that I had to satiate. And I did anything to do it. I started to resort to stealing, to finance what I was trying to do. I completely, lost who I was, and I would have these moments of lucidity where I would, be about to do something really wrong to get money that I needed to support this habit. And I would, like I said, I'd have this moment of lucidity and be like, wow, this is really wrong. And then quickly that would be overturned, by my addiction, and I would rationalize it. I need it, They'll understand I need it. Not only did I steal, possessions from people, from the people that loved me, I stole, peace of mind, I stole trust, I stole things that are very hard to get back. And that's how I lived for a couple years. And then towards the end, I had come to the realization that I was a full-blown drug addict. That this was my lot in life. There was nothing else for me, and I had these delusions that I would be the first ever person successful at doing copious amounts of drugs every day for the rest of their lives. And I would tell myself, oh, when I'm older, when I'm a grown up, when I have kids, I'll eventually stop this and I'll find the wherewithal to do so. Again, delusional. It got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. I hated myself. My house was a place that no one wanted to be at. I had no relationship with my family, no relationship with my parents, with my sister. I was an untrustworthy person, and that was all deserved. And I think it got to the point where, I feel like I would have this, this dialogue in the mirror with myself, right? Talking to myself, coming back from, from picking up. And just like pleading with myself, like, why are we still doing this? Why am I still doing this? Why can't we stop this? But again, going back to communication, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to ask for help. And I didn't have the skill set, and I didn't know how to go to my parents and say, hey, I have a real problem here. And I needed to come to, my own rock bottom, both physically and emotionally, where before I could step up and say, I cannot do this anymore. And that's what it took. I needed to be totally beaten down and, take a swift ride through, a total nightmare. A total nightmare. To be able to kind of, get to my knees and say, I give up. I literally cannot live like this anymore.
And how many years from that, we'll say that first drink, how many years was this lifestyle?
This lifestyle lasted, so that first drink was in 7th grade. I'd say I was 13. Lasted till I got sober on March 4th of 2015. So 24 and a half years, sorry. 9.5 years.
And you got your 3-year anniversary coming up.
I do, yeah, next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, thank you, yeah, thank you.
So during that 9.5 years, I assume, did you lose anyone in those rounds?
Sure.
In those rounds of that drug?
Yeah, so you know, in college, I had a group of friends who, you know, we did Oxy together. The first person who introduced me to Oxy was a good friend of mine. He's dead. I went to his funeral while I was still using drugs. I have, out of a crew of, I think 6, 2 are dead, 2 are sober, and 2 are actively trying to get sober. You know, really struggling with life, just not doing well. And I actually just had, you know, another friend who passed away 3 weeks ago, who I played lacrosse with in high school. You know, we played on elite travel teams together, you know, and we both, you know, used this drug together. And I found out, you know, that he died of an overdose, you know, 26 years old.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, after this, how's life now? Like, you've been sober for 3 years. You've gone down an amazing, or a horrible, but what a journey, so to speak. Where does it leave you now? Where's AJ Diaz now?
He is thoroughly enjoying his life. My life's beautiful. You know, I have a relationship with my family. We speak every day. You know, before, when I would call my mother, I would call to hear, you know, the trembling in her voice to see how much trouble I was in, or could I go home now, or did I have to wait it out? Now I get to call, and she is so happy to hear from me, you know, and I'm so happy to talk to her and communicate with her and tell her all about my life and my day. My sister and I have a fantastic relationship. Matter of fact, all 4 of us went out to dinner last week. It was great. You know, I am working in a field now that I never thought I'd ever be in. But I finally have found my path in life. You know, I feel like I was always meant to do this. I just, you know, took a couple extra roads than most people. You know, I'm back in school to get my master's. I'm doing things that I couldn't fathom 3 years ago. You know, I have an apartment, I pay my rent on time, I have food in the fridge, I have, you know, money in the bank. These are things I did not have. You know, basic things that I took for granted. But now that I have them, these are, you know, things I'm grateful for every day. You know, I'm a happy person who has people around him and relationships, and, you know, gets to do things like this and help someone else who is struggling, might be struggling, or knows someone who is struggling. You know, that's amazing. You know, I can't articulate how good that is.
So I want to come back to that in regards to helping other people and things of that nature. But let's look at another public service message from Manhasset High School students.
Student from Manhasset High School, and I am here to tell you about a new club at my school known as SALT, or Student Athlete Leadership Team. SALT is a program that is currently running in over 40 Long Island school districts and was started by the nonprofit Athletes Helping Athletes. SALT's purpose is to train high school athletes to conduct workshops for elementary school students. These workshops cover many topics that are important to the development of children, including self-esteem issues, sportsmanship, bullying and teasing, as well as issues relating to alcohol and other drugs. This training at Malloy College by amazing former athletes from a wide range of sports. How does it work? Well, first the student athlete fills out an application, which will then be followed by an interview. SALT is looking for student athletes who are good in academic standing, who have demonstrated good behavior on and off the field, and who have a strong desire to learn leadership skills and become mentors in the community. If selected, student athletes commit to attending 3 training sessions at Malloy College, The training is designed to show the student athletes how to use their athletic experience to conduct a workshop through which they will teach and motivate the younger students. The student athletes then travel to the elementary schools 3 times to run the workshops for the 6th graders, during which they will problem solve, answer questions, and give advice through various social scenarios. Student athletes make a firm commitment to being a role model by not drinking alcohol or using any illegal substances. If you think you have what it takes to be a Manhasset High School SALT member, go to CASA.org for an application. If you have any questions about the program, please email casa_org@manhassetschools.org. Thank you.
Welcome back. Again, I'm here with AJ Diaz, Manhasset High School, class of 2009. We're talking about underage drinking. AJ, we've come from when it all started in 7th grade. We followed your 9.5-year journey that's taken you from the initial stages of just drinking beer down to alcohol, marijuana, oxycodone, the stealing, the losing things you've loved from your family, to trust, to the sports, the things that you got into to college. You lost jobs, friends, and as we found out, you've lost some close friends along the way. Now you're recovered, 3 years almost. You know, why is it important to you? Why are you telling your story?
Sure. I'll correct you. I'm recovering. You know, this is not something that is. This is something I'll do, you know, I'll recover for the rest of my life every day, you know. Why am I telling my story? Because for all intents and purposes, I checked every box that a kid needed to check. You know, I had good grades in high school. I had a lot of friends. I was popular. You know, I played sports. I did all those things that you needed to do, right? But inside I was, you know, very lonely, and I was sad, and I didn't know how to put that to words. And the way that I dealt with that was by, you know, seriously abusing alcohol and then drugs. And that's, and looking back on that, I realized how sad I was, and how, you know, how I didn't know how to, like, you know, go to someone and say, hey, I don't know what's going on with me. I don't know why I feel different. Why do I feel less than? This is what's happening. This is what I see from other people. Why are they different from me? And I want to be able to help. You know, addiction is something that does not discriminate. It doesn't care who you are, how much money you make, you know, race, creed, ethnicity, religion. It does not matter. It will, you know, it will get you. And there's no escaping that. And watching people put me back together, right? You know, watching them, you know, heal me so that I could, you know, be the brother I was always supposed to be, the son I was always supposed to be, you know, the man I was always supposed to be. I'm forever grateful for. So the opportunity to have to possibly help someone do that, you know, you know, that's everything for me.
That's great. And as looking back to give someone 20/20 hindsight, or to try to help prevent that next person or kid from going down that path, what would you say to a coach that you had many, or parents that it's a growing concern amongst parents, or even as a community? You know, what are things that you would recommend or suggest that could maybe help prevent someone else from taking the same path? Sure,
and you know, I'll say this first. You know, I know you're a parent. I'm not a parent. You know, I would never pretend to know what it's like to be a parent. But having said that, I have been a kid. You know, I have been a player, you know, who has been under the tutelage of coaches. And I'd say, you know, communication is so huge, right? And that's a big, you know, ambiguous term, right? And so, like, you know, communication at the level of, you know, kind of know your audience, you know, meet people where they're at, if you have a kid like myself who I wanted to come home, say, hey, how are you? My day was great, and go like stew upstairs by myself, you know, work with that. Don't expect, you know, paragraphs when I come home, you know, go piecemeal at a time, right? And when kids make mistakes, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes, you know, and work with them from that, and let them know, you know, kind of leave the door open for them. You know, hey, you seem like something's going on. I'm here. You know, I just want you to know that. No matter what it is, I'm here on your own time, right? Kids are smart, you know, and I think if we leave the door open for them to communicate, right, and we, along the way, kind of, you know, drop the breadcrumbs of tools, you know, at their disposal to do so, you know, they're, like I said, they're smart. They can figure it out.
And then, in regards, that's the parents or the coaches, like for a kid, all right, right now, kids are dealing with the social media,
sure,
which is something that definitely wasn't around in my day and age, and, you know, was maybe just getting introduced in yours.
Yes.
The vaping has replaced the cigarette,
right,
and the social pressures of the college, the high school, and life. We live in a great community in Manhasset,
yep,
a lot of opportunity, but there's also one major thing that can derail all those opportunities. What do you say to those kids that are out there that right here is, you have a decision, you have a fork in a road, and weighing those risks and rewards, like how do they navigate those waters that are out there?
It's a great question. You know, I was, like I said, you know, I was your prototypical Manhasset kid, right? I had all these boxes checked. I had this trajectory for, you know, ultimate success, or so I thought, you know. But I fell into this, you know, idea that, you know, drinking, you know, unabated was normal. You know, drinking, you know, binge drinking underage was totally normal, and that it didn't have an effect on me. You know, I ended up quitting all those sports that I loved. I know I mentioned that earlier. So I would say to those kids, you know, what's important to you? You know, you can still hang out with your friends. You can still, a common question I get all the time is, what do you do now? What do you do socially? And I say, I do everything. I do absolutely everything. I just don't drink. I don't do drugs. I can still be social with people. I can still go to the movies. I can still, you know, be with friends. I can still go out to dinner. You know, I can still go out with the guys. I can do everything that I want to do. You know, I just don't have to drink, and that's okay. You know, I have more fun now than I did before. You know, my drinking left me alone and with no one. You know, that does not sound like a good time to anyone. You know, and so I'd say to these kids, you know, what's important to you? You know, talk to your friends. What do you guys want? And I know that's a big question for a kid who's 16 years old. But, you know, start with, what do you want next year? Do you want to be the starter, or do you want to be the kid that, you know, that isn't the starter, right? Do you want to be first chair in band, or do you not want to be? You know, do you want to get these kind of grades? You know, what's important?
So, and thank you for sharing your story with us, and for opening up, I think, as a parent, as a coach, and hopefully those that are listening and watching this, and the kids take something back from this, and we can just try to educate, and someone learns a little bit along the way. If there is one final message, one final note that if someone was to walk away from this, this is the message you want them to get from this, what's the take home in all of this?
Communicate what's going on with you, you know, to whomever you trust with it, whether it be your best friend, excuse me, your best friend, your coach, your teacher, your parents, a sibling. Communicate how you feel. It's so important. It's so important. I cannot express that enough. You know, even if you can't really put words on it, right? You know, go so simple as like, hey, I don't feel good, or hey, I'm feeling really great. You know, and then, you know, whomever you bring that to, they can expand on that. You know, or they can tell someone else and they can expand on that, right? You know, this is not something that, you know, life is not something we have to do alone. You know, it is a team, a group effort. Like so many things, you know, and help is such a wonderful thing to have. You know, I don't want to, why do things all on my own when I have, you know, a myriad of people who are more than willing to, you know, lighten my load. So I think the biggest take home is, you know, talk about what's going on. Even if it seems trivial, talk about what's going on. It's so important, so important.
So, thank you. On behalf of Manhasset CASA, my name is Steve Panzik, here with AJ Diaz. And again, that is all the time we have today on Prevention Through Connection. I want to thank you, AJ, for coming and talking to us. The one lesson that I want to make sure that everyone comes across here is coach, parent, student. As AJ said, communication is key. For any more information or questions that you want to learn about Manhasset CASA, visit www.manhassetcasa.org. Thank you.